Hi guys, it's Lisa. Today we're gonna do my May wrap-up. I've read around 10 books, which is like a well done. Therefore, I will divide this wrap-up in different categories. We will see new releases, then adult fantasy, young adult, and then fantasy romance or romance. So feel free to jump to whatever category makes more sense to you. Starting with the new releases, I read two, Stardust Thief and Book of Night. Starting with the Stardust Thief. This is kind of like an Arabian story. It was really similar for me to We Hunt the Flame with high An Ember in the Ashes vibes, so it was kind of like that blend. The story talks about this girl that is kind of like the midnight merchant, so she is kind of like one that trades in magic, and magic in this land, it's like really scarce. It only kind of happens due to the blood of the jinn, these mythical creatures that are kind of like evil, and so people hunt them down, and there are some relics that are from them. In a nutshell, this story, it's a quest. We will see our main girl that has a jinn as her bodyguard, and they will go on this adventure with the son of the sultan searching for a lamp. It was a nice read. It kind of like dragged a little bit, like
it was adventure and then another adventure and then another adventure, and you know what is gonna happen in a way.
It surprised me a little bit with all of the jinn stories. I think that mythology and the story that was woven due to that was really interesting. So if you're in for these kind of like stories, definitely check these out. Then we go to Book of Night by Holly Black. This author is famous for the Cruel Prince trilogy, and this was her adult fantasy debut. It's a dark story. In this world, magic happens throughout the shadows, and we start the story with our girl that it's now kind of like trying to move away from her old life. She was a very prominent thief, and now she's kind of like
laying low.
But one day something happens that kind of like brings her again to this darkness, to this world of violence. And for me, the main character was a little bit bland, so this wasn't a favorite of mine. Then we go to adult fantasy. Black Sun, it's potentially the best book that I've read this month. I just loved it. 5 stars. I thought it was fantastic setting, fantastic characters, a story with a great pace, and overall I was super hooked, super engaged. Like, I was body reading these, and we scheduled to read 100 pages more or less per week, and I was like, no, but I want to read more. It's set in the pre-Columbian American civilization, which is already very different, and the story kind of like starts with us knowing that a winter solstice is gonna happen, and that something is gonna happen as well in this kind of like sacred city, and we will follow 3 main points of view in this story. One of them, it's this god human weird person, and he was kind of like transformed. He was the result of kind of like almost a sacrifice, and he is now kind of like convinced that he is a god, and he is in this path of reaching this sacred city towards the solstice. Then we have another point of view, which is this sailor that also has a little bit of magic. She is almost not a mermaid, but she has something with the sea. And then we will have an inner point of view of one of the priestess that lives in this sacred city, and all of the different intrigues that happen. Really fantastic. I thought, like the beginning, the first chapter, it's savage. The only thing that for me didn't make this book to be an all-time favorite, it's like the ending, because the book like builds up towards something, right? It has this 9 days till the solar solstice, 5 days, this kind of vibe, so you know that something is gonna happen, and then when things get there, the pace gets a little bit weird, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed it, and really recommend. And then I read The Blade itself by Joe Abercrombie, and I didn't love it. Hear me out. Like, this story, it's a very character driven, so I thought I am also a character driven reader, but I've discovered, thanks to this book, that I'm not just a character-driven reader. I need also something in the plot to happen, and that plot that is happening to be interesting enough for me to keep going. So The Blade itself has 3 main points of view, and all of them have something. One of them, it's kind of like this inquisitor whom I loved him, a savage that is kind of like in a path, and he finds out different mages and he aligns with them. And then we will also have a nobleman kind of like doing tournaments, and the story just follows them in their day to day. And the point of view weren't as bad, especially Glokta, the Inquisitor. I loved him. Whenever he was in the page, it was like, yeah, worth it. But the rest, I was like, no, like what is happening? And we move to the young adult section, and we will start with Fable, a story that for me was kind of like a 4 stars. It isn't fantastic, but the vibes are outstanding, and this just made it for me. It reads with a lot of dialogue, so it goes really fast. Also the world building, it's kind of easy to get into it, and we will follow our main girl Fable, who is kind of like the daughter of this main pirate lord. Her dad has decided that she's not worth it and she's not meant to be in this pirate world, so he has left her in this island where she needs to figure out how to get out. She has a little bit of magic, and with that she is able to have a little bit of money and get out.
Is it predictable? Yes, it is predictable.
However, really, the vibes. I buddy read Fable with Jess from Honest Fiction. I will link her channel down below. She does amazing fantasy romance and romance overall content. And then I read this Savage Song by B.E. Schwab, which I really liked. I was surprised. But the world building, it's incredible. It starts with the premise that every act of violence breeds monsters. And depending on that act of violence, the monster, it's different. Each of these creatures have a special power, and we will have the city that it's kind of like divided in different sides. And we will have 2 points of view, one for each of these city places. But the catch here is that in one of the places we will have one of these monsters, and how he kills, it's due to music. So he can play his violin, and then kind of like if you have done wrong, then your soul will emerge and he will suck it. Fantastic. Very plot driven, but you have a little bit of depth with the characters, so it's kind of like a blend. Right, and now going into the romance bucket, I read 2 rom-coms and then 2 fantasy romances. Starting with the rom-coms, because those are standalones. I kind of binged a little bit Emily Henry, and so I started with Book Lovers, which is her new release. The tropes were fantastic. Like, I tend to hate miscommunication, and in here, although it happened a little bit, it wasn't massive. I really loved the enemies to lovers trope, and overall it was this incredible banter, this incredible conversation between the different characters, which reminded us a little bit to the Gilmore Girls as well as this small town. And overall I thought it was lovely, fun, and you know, just the perfect point of sweet and spice. We moved to You and Me on Vacation by the same author, which I despised. I know, in this case, it's me, not the book, because I hate certain tropes that were really into this book, and I knew it. Getting into this book, I knew that this wasn't gonna be my jam, but at the same time I was so in love with the vibe from Book Lovers that I was like, nah, maybe I can stretch, and no, I cannot. I don't know what I tried.
Massive miscommunication.
And then I'm not the biggest fan of friends to lovers when there's a lot of backstory, because what I like in books is to discover the characters. I like the situations. I like when the characters are leaving those moments, like I feel for them and I'm all for that with them. And that's the point, that when there are some books that rely heavily on the experience or the background that our characters had like 10 years ago, it's like, but I wasn't there, you know? I wasn't really there. And I feel like isolated, and I just feel like they are telling me stuff. That's the point that I do not like. And this book, it's heavy on that point. 2 best friends. Every summer they went on vacation and they had these amazing memories together. The book kind of like moves from what is happening like now, and then the flashbacks to all of those amazing holidays that they had, that got old real quick, because I was like, I wasn't there, that was amazing, I know it is not amazing now, and you know, like, I feel so detached from that. And then last but not least, I read book 4 and 5 in the Zodiac Academy, so fantasy romance. This story talks about two twins. They are in the human world, then a professor comes for them because they are fae, and they get into this academy where they need to train. Upon arriving, they discover that they are very powerful, they are the heirs of the throne, and you know, they are to be trained. It's kind of like a bully romance, and it isn't even good, but it's so addicting. And so, book 4, without getting into spoilers, but it was like I almost threw the book away. I ended and I was so pissed with whatever happened. I was so unhappy. I mean, it's good that a book makes you feel stuff and that you want things to happen, right? So good for the book. But I was so mad. And then book 5 wasn't even better. Overall, the scope, it's getting bigger, and the background is also getting a little bit more interesting, which is fantastic. But the characters do not advance really, like the arc that the characters have. I don't believe that it's massive. This book makes you suffer. Like, I need a break. Let me know down below what are the books that you've read in May, or if you're interested in any of the books that I've mentioned, let me know. I'm happy whenever I see a comment of you. It just makes my day. So let me know that you exist, and I will hope to see you soon in all the videos. Bye!